Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Dasani?
This is a bottle of Dasani.
Okay.
Coca-Cola's brand of
I've been binging more and more Tom Scott. Not that I just found out about him. I knew about his channel before I started reacting to things. But just lately, I've just really been watching his videos. Some I haven't even reacted to, but I realized I should just record it. Why not? And put it up. What am I saying? I just burped. I'm sorry. Great start. Good. Preemptive like. Original link to the video, to Tom Scott's video. Top of the description. Just, put it there for credit. And if you get, too annoyed with me pausing or something, just go watch it yourself. All right? All right, it's late. It's 9 p.m. I usually don't. Let's go.
Water.
I'm sorry. All right. I don't want to restart. Intro. My name's Connor. Original link, top description, Discord, stuff. Go. And wasn't Dasani like selling tap water? But isn't that what all bottled water places?
This is a bottle of Dasani, Coca-Cola's brand of bottled water. It's basically Coke without the syrup. Like most American bottled water, it is tap water that's been purified and then had tiny amounts of minerals deliberately added back into it. Except not quite. This is a British Dasani bottle from 2004, which is the first and last time that you could ever buy Dasani water in the UK. And the story of why it failed here is one of the greatest marketing disaster stories in history. But it wasn't until I started searching through newspapers and TV shows from 2004, that I found that the tale is a little more complicated than I thought.
Wait, so was it like they didn't even bother filtering it and putting minerals in? Like they just... Why can you, by the way, why is it legal to start a lemonade stand? Never mind.
A little more complicated than a lot of the world thought. And it starts years earlier. Through most of the 1980s, bottled water was something expensive that got ordered at fancy restaurants, and it was only by the early 90s that it had started to become a thing that everyday people might want to buy. On Christmas Day, 1992, British sitcom Only Fools and Horses made fun of that trend by having its main character, lovable rogue Del Boy, sell tap water from South London as Peckham Spring bottled water.
Tom, spoilers. I haven't seen that clip.
Lovable rogue Del Boy sell tap water from South London as Peckham Spring bottled water. It's a slow and old-fashioned comedy by today's standards, and the episode is really weirdly paced. You're two-thirds of the way through before anyone actually starts bottling water. But because it was the Christmas Day episode in 1992, back when most British households only had 4 channels of television, that show was watched by more than 20 million people, more than a third of the entire British population. And the final joke of that episode is that the water is contaminated by some chemical barrels that Del Boy dumped in a local pond in the first act. It is, to be fair, a brilliant closing gag, and it's one that stuck in the British psyche. The BBC reran the episode another 5 times in the years after. It'll have been on cable and satellite channels many more times than that. I would guess that by 2004, when Dasani launched, about half of the country, maybe more, could understand Peckham Spring as a reference, or at least remembered that time Del Boy tried to bottle tap water. Now, under UK law, mineral water is a protected term. Mineral water must come from a certified underground spring. It must not be chemically treated in any way, and it's generally under heavy regulation. And back in 2004, the perception was that bottled water meant mineral water. Why else would you buy it? It's something you can't get at home. Over in America, though.
Yeah, see, all I drink is tap water. If you have watched more than, well, honestly, if this is not your first time watching me, which if it is, hi. But if it's not, then you probably have noticed me drinking from sometimes it's a milk jug that obviously you have to clean it out very well, or else it's nasty, or just a regular water jug. But I'll keep it for a while and just refill it. I love drinking water. Don't get me wrong, I do not have a good diet. Sorry, I'm kind of stuffy. My nose. But I guess one thing is kind of healthy. I drink a lot of water, a lot, and I love water. It's other than maybe a Coke after like a big meal. Yeah, or other than like a Coke or a Dr. Pepper after a good meal, I'd say water is my favorite drink. It just is, or beer, and I just fill it up. The only time I ever get, I knew I had a point to this. The only time I ever get bottled water is when I'm out somewhere, or like I'm on a car ride, or I'm just somewhere where I'm not at my house where I drink tap water. So yeah, that's the only time I use it. I could have just said that much quicker.
Though, the home of Coca-Cola, the perception of bottled water was that it was just that. It's water in a bottle. You were paying for the convenience and the taste, and it didn't really matter whether that came from the ground or from a water purification factory. To be fair, there are large parts of America where the tap water does not taste or smell good, and their federal standards aren't great, particularly compared to Europe. And anyone who has ever taken a vacation to Disney World, for example, will know that the tap water around Orlando can smell a little sulphury. But in the UK, the perception was different. You were buying...
Go for it if you want. Car horn and...
mineral water, because it was natural. It had been...
Jesus. I take issue with that, sir. Hey, don't get me wrong. I don't live in Michigan, okay? And... but... I feel like New England, also New York City tap water. I went to school, college in St. John's University for 3 years before finishing at PC in Providence. But I love the tap water there. And I think, you know, Maine, like upper New England and kind of Canada that's near New England has extremely good water. So that might be true for a lot of places in America, but it's definitely not true for where I live. We have really good tap water over here.
In the UK, the perception was different. You were buying mineral water because it was natural. It had been filtered through rocks for eons. It was classier and fancier and perhaps healthier than what came out of your tap. That's rubbish, of course. We have some of the safest tap water in the world, and did back then too, but advertising is powerful, and the idea was that bottled water was filtered and pure straight from the earth. It was somehow better. Coca-Cola were trying to introduce an American-style filtered tap water to a British mineral water market. Now, they were not lying about their water. Their marketing didn't use the phrase tap water. They preferred purified water, but they weren't lying. It says on the back of the bottle, their process precisely delivers pure, still water. The public might have assumed it was mineral water, but Coca-Cola never said that. In fact, what they had done is spend a long time with focus groups, taste testing and refining the mineral balance and the flavour. Might have assumed it was mineral water, but Coca-Cola never said that. In fact, what they had done is spend a long time with focus groups, taste testing and refining the mineral balance and the flavour of the water, making a version of Dasani that was ideal for the British palate. Dasani launched with the first stage of what was going to be a £7 million advertising campaign on February 10th, 2004, and it went okay. For weeks, the British public either didn't notice or didn't care that it was tap water, the same way Americans don't seem to care. There were occasional rough patches for the launch, like shopkeepers in Buxton, a town famous for its mineral water, complaining about being forced by their contracts with Coca-Cola to replace bottles of the local water in coolers with Dasani. Or the regulators launching an investigation into whether Coca-Cola should be using the word pure on the label. But on the whole, it went okay. A lot of articles written more recently claim that Coca-Cola's first blunder was copying an American Dasani slogan, "Can't live without spunk," which has a very different meaning in the UK. But I don't think that's true. The only actual evidence I could find of that slogan...
What does it mean? Like dirt, like funk or spunk? What does spunk mean in America? Spunk. You know, spunk.
Is a screenshot on one tech news website that liked innuendo. Looks like a web designer reused some American ad images in one part of a Flash-based website that almost no one saw. No other article from the time, that I can find anyway, mentions that slogan at all. You know, the advertising was put together by Coca-Cola's UK division. They're not stupid. In fact, the advertising team was probably breathing a sigh of relief. All things considered, the launch had been successful. And then it all went wrong. Very, very quickly. Exactly 3 weeks after launch, March the 2nd, most of the major British newspapers simultaneously put out big stories announcing that Dasani was bottled tap water. Most of them mentioned that episode of Only Fools and Horses, and all of them made a lot of noise implying that it was a rip-off, although...
Oh my god, so there was... Wow, so that's interesting. Cool. So, a very famous episode on a very famous show that, like you said, 20 million people watched the episode, and that's like in the psyche of Britain, what just provided the perfect immediate like image for a market that Dasani is trying to sell to, that makes it so easy to like when someone calls it bad, to then refer to this, and then everyone's like, "Oh my god, that's really cool." I mean, it's not good for Dasani, but that's, yeah.
Perhaps they didn't
put it in
quite so few words. And back when a lot of people actually read physical newspapers, front page news saying that your product is a rip-off does make a big difference to sales. But why was it suddenly news everywhere at the same time after 3 silent weeks? The missing piece of the puzzle is one journalist called Graham Hiscott, who worked for the Press Association. And as he tells it, as part of a brilliant half-hour documentary made later that year, he happened to be flipping through an issue of The Grocer, an industry magazine, at work one day. And, you know, that's an event that the documentary asked him to recreate for some reason. Now, The Grocer is an ideal source for journalists looking for the next story about a product recall or a weird marketing strategy, and that issue of the magazine had a feature on bottled water, and there was just one line in one article describing Dasani as a mineral-enhanced treated tap water, which when written so clearly seemed odd. So Graham called Coca-Cola and they said, yes, yeah, Dasani is treated tap water from the main supply at their bottling plant right there in Sidcup, South London. 10 miles from Peckham, where the episode of Only Fools and Horses was set. A few hours after that phone call, there was an article on the Press Association Newswire about where Dasani came from. Articles on the Newswire don't usually go straight to the public, they go to other journalists first who can use them or adapt them. And the editors at most of the newspapers correctly decided that yes, this was something their readers would be interested in. 6 months earlier, when Coca-Cola was setting out preparations for their Dasani launch, The Grocer had run a small article about it. And there's a line in there that's prophetic. One senior buyer warned that some consumers may be put off by the water's lack of provenance. And now, Coke bottles
provenance
tap water for 3,000% markup was on the front pages. But Coca-Cola and Dasani bottles tap water put off by the water's lack of provenance. And now, Coke bottles tap water for 3,000% markup was on the front pages. But Coca-Cola and Dasani soldiered on. That didn't kill the brand. They put more marketing budget behind it. They gave away free bottles in supermarkets. Another article in The Grocer from back then quotes Coca-Cola's UK...
I don't get it. I don't get it. What? I can't go through it. It'd be too long. Like the fact that it was in the ironic place near the Only Fools and what? All right, guys, I went back to kind of figure it out. I sort of understand, but still kind of confusing. And I had to pee. I washed my hands, and I did like 40 push-ups. No big deal, you know. I did. Okay. Yeah. All right.
From back then, quotes Coca-Cola.
Like, I think it's from the controversy that it's in the same near the same location as the. That's my question. Was the first controversy they just said right there that it was found that the plant just happened, the Coke plant, facility, factory, whatever you want to call it, Dasani, was near where that episode took place, or was it something else? So, let's go.
Coca-Cola's UK marketing director. There cannot be many people who do not know about Dasani now. I cannot imagine how much we would have had to spend to get that level of awareness. There is a theory that there's no such thing as bad publicity, after all. The final nail in the coffin was the contamination. They'd had a bad batch of calcium chloride delivered right here. It's one of the chemicals they use in the purification process, and tests revealed that their water contained above the legal limits of bromate, a cancer-causing chemical. There wasn't anywhere near enough in the water to do harm, but there was enough that it was outside the legal limits. So within
my God.
24 hours, every unsold bottle was recalled back here.
It's not
and the
funny,
shelves were empty. Just like Del Boy, not only had Coca-Cola sold tap water in a bottle, but they sold contaminated tap water in a bottle. Dasani.
That's if I were doing a GIF, that's a head slapper.
Never returned to shops. Never launched in France or Germany like they were planning, and to this day, if you type Dasani into Google UK, you get results about the disaster. News reports from 2004 on the first page. Coca-Cola launched other water brands, of course, but as far as I can tell, they all look to be spring waters or mineral waters. They're not hooking up a purifier to the tap. Not over here.
You guys hear about what happened in South Korea today? At like the Halloween, like 150 people or something because of a crowded area. That's insane. Him saying disaster just made me think of it. Sorry, all right.
There are other folks' waters, they're not hooking up a purifier to the tap. Not over here. There are other folks selling purified tap water, of course, but that's usually the cheap option on the shelf. Not that it matters. It's all just water. And I reckon Coca-Cola could absolutely have made this work. Maybe they still could. There is a world in which one journalist didn't use the words tap water, or another journalist didn't happen to look at one particular article, and where the launch went just fine, and Britain got used to the fact that drinking bottled, purified tap water could be normal. After all, if it had been a popular brand, no one would want to admit their purchases might be questionable. It's a lot easier to just say, yeah, that's fine, of course, I know it's tap water, than go, hang on, I've been paying how much for what? And worried that you might have been ripped off. I don't
How much for cancer?
think the Dasani disaster was inevitable. But it happened. And all that's left, 16 years later, is a few bottles like this.
That went well. Hey, I gotta be honest, okay? This is just my opinion, but I've been to Europe twice on family vacations. Once was in 2006. I was only, oh my God, I should know this by now. I was 12, 13 years old. And I don't really remember it, but I went a few years ago. My dad and brother, we drove around Europe, from Heathrow and then around kind of Western Europe back to Heathrow. And water, I hated it. By the way, I loved it. It was an amazing trip, and this is the only thing I can think of that I'm like, oh my God, I hated the water, all of the bottled water and like the tap water, whatever. It just, I hated it, like me, and so I don't want to. It was such a big thing for me when I was there that I have to mention it. I would be fine, I'm sure, if some weren't that bad, some bottled water, if I just found the bottled water that I like, and then I just kept buying that one. But man, I remember that being a huge thing for me. I wasn't a fan of the water, the taste of it. But, just my opinion. Awesome video as always. Hope I'm not getting sick again. Awesome video as always. See you guys next time. But it's late, guys. All right. Hope you're all doing well. See you next time. Bye.